welcome to the Now Debate. Jared Walters here with my esteemed colleague and captain of our respective ship, Mr. Richard Oliver. How are we doing, Rich?
All right, yeah.
And it's been quite a bit of a journey on...
Yeah.
It's been quite a bit of a journey this last year. So we thought we'd do a Now Debate talking about the journey of which we've been on and where that journey has taken us. And... having a look basically at some of the things that we've gone through over the course of the last year with regards to our now investigations, where it's taking us and where it's leaving us. And in all matter of fact, it's kind of got a bit on top of us lately.
Yeah.
It has. We did our recent Now Investigations 10, which did have some very interesting responses, especially a voice explicitly asking for 76 children.
Mm.
And there was quite a lot of negativity and negative vibes coming through that. But it was a very interesting one because it was almost like whatever was negative that was there was being given the opportunity to speak. And it seems like it was kind of acknowledging the fact that it's having the opportunity to speak. So whether it hijacked the actual investigation, whether it's something to do with the apps, and this is something I'd like to talk about, is the technical argument about these apps of why they shouldn't work. Yeah. And so what's your thoughts? Now we've done 10 of these types of investigations. What are your thoughts on them?
Well, I mean, we've tried and tested quite a few of them.
Well, let's try quite a few of what now?
Apps.
Right.
Sorry. I don't know. Still, some of the responses, obviously we've had predictions, we've had saying things has come true. We've had personal messages, we've had people that were sort of like recognise and different things. Yeah. So I'm not sure, I mean, how it works, I'm still not 100% sure exactly how spirit manipulate these sounds and these frequencies and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I still know, I think it just needs... I mean, I've had evidence from these apps, this irrefutable.
Yeah.
So, I mean... I don't know. I mean, obviously some of the things we've got are quite bizarre.
Yeah.
And they've taken us somewhere we really didn't want to go.
What do you mean by that? Where is it taking us that we didn't want to go, do you think?
Well, it's taken us, almost a year on a road where we've come to the conclusion we're not sure what it really was the agenda.
Yeah.
Why
are we being told these things?
Yeah.
Do we trust these beings? Because there's a lot of stuff in the public domain that these beings have claimed to be star beings. I think what we're dealing with is not just one source, because we've had the Council of 12 quite significantly.
Yeah.
But we've not had anything about the Council of 12 directly since the 6th investigation that we did, the 6th Now investigation live stream that we did. So we've had nothing from them since. Really, that I've found as concrete. The Now Investigations 8 seemed like it was a little bit of a bust. I'm not sure if we had a few things from Spirit on there. It was very, very different to what we've had before. Our responses are very different to how sort of others, like Chill Seekers, Huff, all these sort of other paranormal groups, they're quite different to how they sort of get the messages through. Ours seem to come in quick succession, and it's very strange. The fact that we've had the same messages come through on multiple devices in multiple locations, not all of which are internet connected, they work in different ways, then validates that we are talking to something. And some of these messages have been extremely empowering. But what I found quite strange this Saturday was the negativity that was coming through.
Yeah. It was a first for that type of experiment we've done.
Yes.
For it to be that strong and that negative.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what we done different. I don't know what was different or what they chose that moment to come through like that for. We're not sure. As with all of it, Jan, when we do these things, so we've investigated the paranormal for years and years and years, and it always surprises him.
Yeah.
It's always something that just crops up out the blue.
Well, it's still making sort of biblical references. It is making the references to the Rothschilds. It actually makes a reference to David Icke. I think it actually says the name David Icke at one point. And that was because we did Now Investigations 10 in 3. And what we'll do, we'll start putting out some videos from Now Investigations 10 to show you some of these negative responses. But if we do so, I kind of want to do it in a sort of not in a negative light. So perhaps what would be good for people to listen to is perhaps your take on the sort of, are we looking at a negative a negative species here? Are we looking at like just a demon, so it's a disembodied or non-corporeal sort of entity? What do you think is talking? Is it talking stuff about Lucifer and Rothschilds and goodness knows what else?
Well, I mean, we've come across evil in a paranormal sense on investigations.
Yeah.
And they manifest themselves in different ways. They affect your emotions, they affect your sleep pattern, they affect your mood, they play on your fears, they do all the stereotypical things you should imagine something like that is.
Yeah.
And what it would, what it does. That's about as much as it gets, right? I think there's certain circumstances, special circumstances, where we're talking about possession and stuff like that, where they go a little bit further, right? But I just, from the research I've done, I just believe it's something. There is special circumstances, i.e., like your personality, or like which we've talked about before, like a form of like Asperger's or something along that line. That's what causes these things to manifest. But the reason they're coming through, I mean, we've had, if you remember, we did a case, and I think it was the SB7 said, "Take heed of the devil."
Yeah.
And it said it really clear.
Yeah.
And we couldn't find the response.
No, we can't find the response on the footage.
And it said it super clear, didn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, problem is, does it change once we've listened to it? When we listen to it back?
Which we've had actual confirmation that it does kind of almost alter. I've actually had a response alter from an EVP that's going to go up on the next Paranormal Evidence Archives video. I've had a little bit of problems with the video, which is why it hasn't gone out yet. I wasn't happy with the final video, and at the end of the day, if I'm not happy with the final video, I don't think viewers are going to be happy with it. And I just thought there were bits in there which were too long, too drawn out, where there wasn't anything really interesting happening that it needed. There were interesting things that happened during this, but there were interesting things. Sorry, something's just come into my mind. Then I'll go on to this now. There were interesting things happening, but they just weren't happening. The way I was presenting those interesting things that were happening wasn't telling the story, I think, and doing that story justice. So we've looked at, obviously, just condensing it a little bit, so to give it more of a flavour. Because sometimes we can have so much come through these apps, and the video becomes about the apps. And I think this is something that we've kind of had discussions about now, is starting to move our investigations to get further validation. And I think we'll come on to that in a minute, about some of the experiments that we are going to look to do when we do the next Now Investigations live stream. We are going to look to possibly seek validation through other means without having to rely on the different devices. Because I did Monday Messages 2 weeks ago, which is why I haven't done another one yesterday, was they came through again. And they referenced a conversation that you and I had literally 5-10 minutes before I started that broadcast. Where they were on about we were having a conversation about how the responses, what they all mean, how they fit together, all this, and what it could mean after sort of uncovering what came through on the live investigation that we did on Saturday the 3rd of Feb. What was very, very strange was it was referencing him telling us exactly what to do, and saying that once we put them together we'll understand everything. The fact is, putting these 10 investigations, everything this thing has said, bearing in mind some of it, I would say a large, like at least 40% of it is junk radio. So, you've got to try and put it all together, find the bits that actually do resonate, do make sense, and then look into different ways to do it. But this is not just something that started a year ago with these live streams. This has been going on, as we've mentioned on previous Now Debates, now since, well, for my part, since 2013. For your part, a lot longer than that.
Yeah, going back years and years.
And I think that it's strange how these sort of cases have fitted together, where we've had the electromagnetic field, which we still haven't really got an answer for, as to what was causing that, why it was causing it at certain times. We did kind of rule out as many, quite a few sort of environmental causes in the areas, because it would only happen when certain people were in contact with a device that had some form of psychic sense, or an active interest in psychic phenomena, or the practice of psychic phenomena. Because when we handed it to certain people, the members of our team who were probably leaning more towards the scientific side of things, the signal would just simply stop. So it's very, very strange why that's behaved. From that, the conversation then we had, which predicted something that would happen to me and Sam in May of that year, quite accurately. Then leading up to these live streams. Now, these live streams I was basically given in a dream. I dreamt that we were doing it, and that's when I think, because it was me who actually suggested us doing it. And then all the stuff has come through with you with meditations, all the meditations that you've had when you've been in a church, when we've met privately and done meditations with other members of our respective groups. All this it's all kind of fed into one huge sort of timeline, and you just so what's your kind of thoughts putting the journey together so far with what you know now so far? Where do you think where do you think it's led you? So
well, I mean, this, like you said, this is my first ET contact going back years, right? And the first sort of thing I had with my meditation, the first time I ever did meditation in a church with a group, I saw ETs. Yeah. And I wasn't allowed to talk about it. They didn't want to talk about it in the church, because they were like, oh no, we can't talk about that, and because obviously they just didn't understand it. It's not something they deal with. Yeah. And since that point, it's really, I mean, obviously there's a massive message, and I don't think it's just us, I don't think it's just me that's getting this message. And I think they're just constantly, under multiple devices, trying to get this message across. For what purpose, I'm still not sure. Because, we've talked about this. What can we do? What is our power? I mean, personally, we help a lot of people. But, on the grand sense, it's nothing. It's infinite. It's infinitesimal. Our power in the world, like our way of getting this message across. Yeah. But I think what it is obviously there's so many people getting this message. If we'd all had a means of getting it out there, it'd be a big story. Yeah. And I think that's what's happening. I think we have the opportunity to get a little bit of the message out there.
I think what's happening as well is when people are getting a message, they are protecting their little bits. Yeah. So obviously they're not willing to share it, or they want to do it from which you can understand, because people, have developed projects of which they've put their heart and soul into. So when someone who's maybe like us with a smaller subscriber base approaches someone a lot bigger than us, they don't really want to know.
We've been flattened a bit, haven't we, on that?
Yeah. We have tried to contact other people. We've tried to contact people of influence. The one person that has been actually quite good and come back was Simon Parks. He was, and I would like to contact Simon again. I think that would be something that perhaps we could actually maybe organise and see if he'd be interested, because he did mention on his radio show that he would have been interested in something.
The problem is, you've got all these people doing these, you've got Ancient Aliens, you've got all these shows, right? You've got and they're slamming these shows out there, and then when it comes to something, we are not claiming that it's extraterrestrial. No. We are just saying what we've been told. Yeah. We don't know if it's actual happening or it's happened. Yeah. We are just given the evidence as we've perceived it ourselves. Yeah. We've been doing this for years. We know not to take anything on face value. We've looked at it, we've tried to debunk it, we've thought about it, the references we've had. We can't find the stuff we looked on the radio.
Yeah.
You know, we know they've used radio because we have found stuff where it says, you know, you're listening to crime.
Comes through on, I think it's someone else's video, the SCD2, but it was just the fact that it was referencing that in some of the other responses.
We have tried and tried to think outside the box. Is this? And we're starting to wonder, could it be the apps? Could it be this? Could it be that?
Well, technically, these apps, right? Technically, from a technical... Now, this is where the argument I'm having with Dale is, because Dale is very technically trained. Dale has been on several of our cases. He's my nephew. And he's got a good point. You know, these apps, especially when the inventor... He found an interview, I can't remember the guy's name now, but the inventor of the original Ghost Box, the original SB... I think it was the inventor of the SB7... And he says on record, I just done it for money. People just seem to have this craze about cutting the wire on a radio, and so I just, the reason the SB7 was created was to earn this guy a bit of money, right? Like, we've had certain things that we are getting through, like the SCD2. Like, one of the things Dale says, with the Ghost Box, I can understand it to a point because you're manipulating radio frequencies. You're looking at what words are going through that sort of radio frequency, and you're manipulating the radio frequency so it says those words. You know what I mean? Now, with the early responses, I could understand that. I could sort of like, when we've done ones from back in 2013, up to 2016, when we use the SB7, you get short words. So, for example, when you're asking sort of control questions like how many people are in the room, could you give the next number in sequence, could you give us your name, stuff like that. You can kind of manipulate it, and you'll get single word, 2-3 word responses. That one we had at the Griffin with the Ghost Box, so it's divine, I see you, the people that you are, our people feel that you must stay the same. It's full sentences, which is not something you typically get through the SB7. Now with the SCD2, the Q3 Mark II we were using last, it was basically using, like, essentially it's like a word generator, these boards, so the code behind it would be if something, then X response. So it would basically just sort of say have like 1,000, like an ovulus, for example. It would have like 1,000 words in there, and each word would be given a value, and those would be selected randomly. Very similar to how the SCD2 or the SCD1 would work. I would imagine is it loads X amounts of stations into a buffer, and it'll assign each station a code, play a little bit of that one, play a little bit of that one, play a little bit of that one, play a little bit of that one. And if you broke into the source code, which would be illegal to do without the person's permission, so it's not something we could actually do. But if you did break into the source code of that, it's probably what... Now, if this is different, if someone actually knows anything about these apps, right, and could actually add to the argument in either direction, whether it is for, whether it's against, right? Please let us know in the comments below, because we're desperate for information about these apps and how they actually work. I know that Spirit is meant to sort of manipulate the frequencies. I know that they're meant to... do they manipulate the sound? Do they manipulate it on a level that... technically, it's a technical impossibility that these apps should work. But yes, this is the question I say to Dale. I get what you're saying from a technical standpoint, but how do you explain the responses that we have? Is it the fact that we're hearing something? Is it the fact psychologically we are thinking, oh, that's my brother, the way, but some of the stuff is just so typically him, or it's just relating so much to, it's hard to debunk it, and the fact that we're being told these certain things, could it just be a radio show? We've done all these on a Saturday night. Could they just be like, one of those things be Coast to Coast AM played over and over, and it's just someone talking on that, and we're just getting bits and pieces of it, and what it basically is a piece from Coast to Coast AM or something. This is the thing. This is the thing. If it is, then we would go on record and we would say this is... And it ultimately drew to a conclusion that we have to step away from the boxes. at least for a short term.
Yeah.
At least to sort of to see if we, and I think that is the next step now. We have had that one photograph which was quite strange.
Yeah.
We got taken in the Griffin, but I think we need to get something that will focus more on providing evidence, either or, as to what it is that we're, create something which they can't manipulate. Now, there is one ghost box I would probably say that I would use when we do the next investigation, and that would be either the hacked ghost box or the SB7.
Yeah.
The simple fact is that we know that can be that has been tried, tested, proven time and time again. And okay, you could make the argument, yes, it could be a show about aliens, or it could be a show about current events or whatever, but how many British radio stations do shows about extraterrestrials?
Yeah.
So that would probably be the only box that I would rely on. I would take all the other apps out for the time being. I would still use them on investigations and cases, I would still use them, but develop other ways in which we can communicate, or at least be given evidence of what we're communicating with.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think we obviously need to try other means. We need to get something visually.
Yeah.
Something we can solidly see, right?
Yeah.
So if we try some of the skull group experiments and see if we can get something visual to happen.
Yeah.
For a confirmation, that's something I think we need to work on. We'll obviously try other means, like we'll try the photographs, on different things, and we'll try and get them to show themselves in other means, because if they can do all that, they can manipulate that, then they can manipulate other forms of manipulation.
Yeah,
they should be able to perform, or so I think definitely we need to try different avenues of communication.
I think that film one would be a good one, the one that they did, the film. If we can actually get our head around doing that, it is.
Yeah.
So we'd need to have a bit of think now. I think we're going to go for March 23rd as a tentative date.
Yeah, I think so.
It's unconfirmed at the moment because we need to make sure all team members are going to be about for it. But we will correct it in the description below if we're going to do a different date. But we have penciled in March 23rd for that, and I think that would be what we're going to do, is look at different sort of ways and different experiments. And if you got anything that you would like us to try live on camera, live on YouTube, then please let us know in the comment section below, because it would be very interesting to see.
And you have a look at the responses as well, guys. Have a look at the responses and draw your conclusion on it.
Yeah.
To see what you think about it. If you look at what we've got, and don't just look at the responses, look at the world, everything. Look at it all, because that's how we're looking at it. Yeah. Everything we've been given has got relevance in the world, and that's where it's become hard to take something, to take anything out of it.
Yeah.
Because it's so profound and so true, and leave it the nail on the head,
Yeah.
And have a look at the responses, guys, and draw your conclusion. See what you come up with. See what you think.
Even if you think we're just a bunch of gullible, idiots, because the quite frankly is, the possibility exists that is the case. The possibility exists that perhaps we have been on a bit of a wild goose chase for this, but I don't think we have, especially with some of them. Like when we asked them, were they in the house that one night, and we had the dog with no teeth came in. He was crying. That actually happened. When they reference, that was with regards to what happened to Sam. That's the other thing that we can't reconcile, is what actually happened to Sam that night back in 2013, because they've talked about it.
Yeah.
They've talked about us in great detail.
Well, I never mentioned the Council of 12 before the live streams, because it just never come up, did it?
No.
In conversation, until it was brought up, and I said that's the council I met when I was meditating.
Exactly.
So, that's something that sort of made us go, whoa. Do you know what I mean? There's something, to reference the Council of 12, and there is references to the Council of 12 out there on the internet, and
which we could not, this time last year, I could not find one reference to them for Love No Money. I couldn't. Yeah. And it wasn't until after about September of last year that we started getting references to the Council of 12.
Yeah.
Might be something worth a quick look, actually, before we wrap up for today.
Yeah.
See if there's anything new that's come out in the public domain about them. From what I have been told, it's like there's 12 different dimensions. The 13th being Source, God, and they are the kind of overseers of that highest dimension. Apparently, that's what I've understood from what I've looked into. Now, you know, this it'll have to come a point where you kind of go, well, okay, this is, if you've given us all this information, then, you know, what do you do then? If they give us something that's like really, you know, in order for if they really want to get this message out, then it's going to have to be something quite, like, profound, really, isn't it? Or something that gets people's attention. You know, as much as the responses have been interesting, 3 guys sat in a room listening to a box isn't. So obviously some EVP work would be good as well, to see if we can get some EVP. I think obviously the next live stream, it would be more for experimental sake, because what you're going to find is when we're doing these experiments, people might start getting bored because you're going to be sat there in darkness.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Perhaps it would be. I know in the Skull Group experiments there were certain spirits who were adverse to cameras being used.
Yeah.
Or certain people who are adverse to cameras being used. I personally, I like the camera being on, because at the end of the day, I think this stuff, you know, it needs validation.
Yeah. Well, because, I mean, whether we pre-record it or go live with it, you know what I mean? If we try the experiments anyway.
Yeah. Do
you know what I mean? Exactly. If we try the experiment with the camera and without and see what results we get, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it might, you know, it's worth trying without the camera to see if it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We just have to see. We just have to wait and see, and just keep trucking, I suppose, until we find something that goes, this is what, you know.
This is what it is.
This is it.
Yeah. This is what it is.
This is the validation.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Keep an eye out, guys.
Thank you very much for listening, and you've been listening to the Now Debate. I'm Jared Walters.
I'm Richard Oliver.
And thank you very much for joining us. Take care.
Bye bye.